And he's gonna prove it to the whole world by giving an unknown a shot at the title.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're here to talk about 1976's Rocky and its brand new 4K Blu Ray release that just came out. But first, before we dive into all that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu Ray reviews, movie reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, then nothing helps this channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So Rocky was originally released in 1976. It's written and starring Sylvester Stallone. It's directed by John G. Avildsen. I know I'm pronouncing that name wrong. And this is probably one of the most popular films of all time. It's one of the most beloved characters of all time. I know because this is probably my mother's favorite film. This is probably my brother's favorite film. I grew up with the Rocky movies. I've seen them all hundreds of times. But Rocky and the Rocky films are just not my personal favorite. I always enjoy these movies every time I watch them, but I never come running back to them. And I know that might upset my mom to say that, but I've never had that personal connection to Rocky. Like, I don't go around quoting Rocky or anything like that. I enjoy the movies every time I watch them. That's why people were asking me when I talked about my top 5 favorite sports movies, why didn't I put Rocky in there? Rocky would be probably floating around in that 6 to 10 range, and it wouldn't even be the first Rocky. I personally like Rocky 4 the most. I really got into the Rocky franchise more when the producers and everyone who was involved in creating it really started to do coke. I really think that's when the Rocky franchise took off, is when it's just a fever coke dream. I think that's when Rocky became Rocky to me. But if you go back to the 1970s and you go back and watch 1976's Rocky, you could see that this is a tale that I could see why people love, because it's really about the American dream. It's that rags to riches tale that we've seen in so many movies, and it all started here, plus the montages. You know, this is where it all got started. Sylvester Stallone really gambled everything on this movie. You know, he wrote this himself in 3 days. He was totally committed to starring in this movie, even though people made him offers up to 6 figures and in 1976 to just sell the script. But he said, no, I see myself in this. I know the character better than anyone, even though he gave up directorial rights, which, you know, he would direct a few other movies in this franchise going forward, but he doesn't direct the first one. I think that's a common mistake because he doesn't direct a lot of these sequels. But he gambled on himself, and it paid off by far. He created one of the greatest franchises in movie history, and the first one was made for less than $1 million, and it made $225 million at the box office. So to say the least, this movie was a mega hit. It put Sylvester Stallone on the map. Sylvester Stallone was an unknown before this, but Sylvester Stallone became one of the most popular actors in Hollywood history, one of the most successful actors. Now, I've said before, you know, when I was growing up, you were either a Stallone guy or an Arnold guy, and Matt and I both were big Arnold guys.
Then cook it down now!
So we didn't really dive too much into Stallone. I never really loved Stallone as much as I loved Arnold. And, you know, like his cheesy movies, those were just never my personal favorite. I think that actually Stallone's best movie he ever put out was First Blood. But for people who say that Sylvester Stallone can't act, I direct you towards Rocky, because he does put on a phenomenal performance in this. Sylvester Stallone plays this lovable, not the smartest guy in the room character that everybody seems to love, and he really has just such a good heart about him. He's never going to screw anyone over. And he has a crush. He has a crush on Talia Shire. Both characters seem like they just can't connect to other people, like as far as in a romantic way. But these two have a connection, even though it does seem like in the very early part of this movie, Adrian just given him a lot of pushback. And that actually brings up one of my biggest questions about this movie and the entire franchise going forward. Adrian has a brother named Paulie. I know everyone knows who Paulie is, but I need to understand why anyone is friends with Paulie. Paulie is a piece of shit, man. He is horrible. And throughout the entire franchise, this guy is horrible. By the time we get to Rocky 5, the reason why Rocky goes poor, he trusted Paulie with his money. And I have no idea why. I know Rocky's not the brightest, but you're going to trust Paulie with all your money? I get it. In this movie, they do show, like, oh, he was able to, you know, finagle his way to get an extra $3,000 so that he could just put a logo on Rocky's robe, but you know, in the end, I wouldn't trust that guy. He's a douchebag throughout. He treats his sister horrible. He's not even a really good friend to Rocky. He's just always thinking about me, which is the exact opposite of what his supposed best friend Rocky and his sister think about. And I don't understand what attracts anyone to him. I just think he's very unlikable. Now, the actor playing Paulie does a phenomenal job throughout the entire series, but I just don't really enjoy the fact that all these characters seem to have some sort of love for Paulie, and I just don't see it throughout the entire franchise. But an actor I do think is very underrated in this franchise, and especially in this movie, is Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed. Every time Carl Weathers is on screen, he is phenomenal, and I just think he steals every scene he's in. I think he's a very underrated actor overall, but in this movie specifically as Apollo Creed, I think he does a great job. As this guy who, he's got this heart, he cares about America, but, he's still looking for that almighty dollar and a way to, spin his image, which, in the 1970s, that was very ahead of its time. We live in a world now where everybody is trying to promote their own image, and Apollo Creed had the perfect image, and that's why he's even fighting Sylvester Stallone, is because he's capitalizing on the American holiday, fighting an American in Philadelphia, and he's out here, he doesn't really take this fight too seriously, even though his manager's trying to tell him, hey, this guy, he could probably fight, but we see that Carl Weathers is kind of 1 foot in the ring, 1 foot out. He's really more worried about the show. That's what it's really about. It's about the spectacle. That's what he's there for. He doesn't take Rocky that seriously, and he really should have, and that leads into one of the best fight scenes in the entire franchise. I really think that is the shining star of this film, is the fight scene at the very end, and then you just get one of those classic lines when Adrian runs to the ring and Sylvester Stallone, or I don't know if it was improvised or not, but it always makes me chuckle, and that's what he's like, "Where's your head? I love you!" That's a really funny line. I probably wouldn't have noticed that if my mom didn't point that out to me the first time I ever saw it, because she thought it was hysterical too, and it really is. And there's a lot of little jokes throughout this, and it just shows off how good of a writer Sylvester Stallone is. I don't need to tell you guys how good of a film this is. Everybody knows how good Rocky is. It's in the National Library of Congress for being culturally significant. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Well deserved that year, and it started a franchise. A franchise that is still going today, with the third Creed movie coming out this weekend. So for a franchise to be going for almost 50 years from a guy like Sylvester Stallone, who almost went broke completely and would have never been heard or seen if he didn't gamble on himself in 1976's Rocky. So if you haven't seen Rocky by chance, I can recommend it. I think you're going to enjoy it. There's a reason why this is one of the most popular and best films ever made. It's got to be seen by any cinephile. Even if you're not a boxing fan, I'm not a boxing fan myself, I still think that you should check out Rocky. And we're also here today to talk about this new 4K Blu Ray that just came out, and that's what we're going to do right now. So just a couple notes. I bought the Knockout collection for this. All 4 of these are going to be released in steelbooks in the coming weeks, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have individual slipcovers going forward. But I decided that I wanted to get the Knockout collection, which includes all of the first 4 films. That doesn't include 5 and 6 or the 2 Creed movies. It only includes the first 4 films, and the 4th film in this set is actually the original Rocky IV, and then it's got that new cut Rocky versus Drago in there. So that's pretty cool that you get them both. But today we're only going to be talking about Rocky because I want to review all 4 of them individually, since they are getting 4 solo releases, and I want to talk about each film and each disc individually. So this is a Warner Brothers release. Warner Brothers actually usually does some phenomenal work. Matt just reviewed Trading Day yesterday. That's a Warner Brothers release as well. But the original company who did this was MGM, so actually on the side, if you guys could see that, you get the MGM and WB logo in the corner. And it comes in this case. It looks like one slipcover, one movie inside, but it's not. And I'm not too impressed with the packaging on this. It's kind of what I expected for the price it was, because you get 4 movies in here, 5 if you include Rocky versus Drago. And just so you guys know, there's a rumor going around that Rocky 5 and 6 will get their 4K releases later in the year. There's a rumor that Sylvester Stallone is working on the cuts of those movies. I can't confirm that 100%. That's just what I heard. And right now, Sylvester Stallone and the producers of the Creed franchise, who own the rights to Rocky, they're kind of having a problem. So I don't know how willing he is, but I would love Rocky 5 and 6 because I'm probably one of the only 3 people in the world who actually enjoys Rocky 5. I admit it's a very bad movie, but I still have a pretty good time watching it. So anyway, yeah, the packaging in here, you get a nice slipcover all around. I like the box art, honestly. I do think that that's pretty cool, how you get all the logos for each film and you kind of line them up like that. It's going to look good on your shelf. It'll definitely save space, but I prefer personally, had I had the finances to do it, I would have bought each steelbook individually, but right now, can't swing that, and this was about $60, which is amazing. For 4 or 5 movies, that's pretty much a steal for 4 4K discs, and a bonus disc in here as well. So when you slide it out, It's the same thing as the slipcover, except instead on the back you kind of just get the list of the films. And when you pop it open, there was a digital code in there, so for people who enter our digital code giveaway, you will have your option of those 4 films on digital code. So if you want to own them digitally, enter our digital code giveaway. We do it every single Friday. And then as you can see, there's Rocky. That's the disc we're going to be talking about right now, but I'll just show you guys the rest. They're all in here. And then you get a bonus disc as well. Every disc in there is just a plain black design. Really nothing special as far as packaging goes in this knockout collection, but like I said, they're being released individually in some really nice steelbooks, and if I could have, I would have gotten those, but I couldn't swing it like I said. But this is still a really nice piece to have, and as long as those discs are good, I'm pretty damn happy. And the visuals, so we do get Dolby Vision and HDR10. It's presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85, so no black bars on the top or bottom. And like I said, this is the oldest in the franchise. It came out in 1976, had a budget of less than $1 million. So the source material for this is not the greatest. So I would say that it's a very scene-to-scene type of deal here. Some scenes look phenomenal, while other scenes can look flat, and the skin tones could look a little clay-like and just not natural. And that's really minor complaints, because for the most part, this is a very good-looking 4K. Especially the scenes in the day or the fight scene at the very end. That's the stuff that really just shows off how good this 4K is. One of the scenes that stood out the most to me is the first time that Rocky's running up the stairs. You know, we got to see him before he conquers the stairs, where he barely got to the top and he's out of breath, and it's like the sun is just coming up, and you can see and they turn the camera to show Philadelphia, and you can see all the lights, and the lights, you could just pick them all out because of the resolution increase and the Dolby Vision. And this does have both Dolby Vision and HDR, and I still think, in my opinion, again, this was very close, is the Dolby Vision was slightly better. If you aren't compatible with Dolby Vision, I think you're still going to be impressed with it. I just don't think that this is probably going to be the greatest 4K in this set, just because of the budget and the source material of the original Rocky. I think as we go forward, I think they're all going to start looking a little better. Plus, it's a 1970s film, so just the interiors that they're in a lot are very flat. The colors are, very like, those 70s browns and greens, just kind of what people were into back then. I would say that when I was watching this, the 4K I was comparing it most to in my head was Death Wish, because it's very similar, right around the same year. And, just the fact that the cameras that they were using and just everything that they had at their disposal, it was a lot more difficult to transfer that to the 4K format. Now, I do think that they did an incredible job with it. This is the best Rocky has ever looked. I've seen Rocky on every single format. I've seen it on TV hundreds of times. They used to play this on Thanksgiving. But I think I told you guys, I found the James Bond franchise on Thanksgiving on one of those runs. So even if my mom and my brother were out there watching the Rockies on TNT, I was watching James Bond on whatever channel that was on. But I have seen this on TV, VHS, DVD, Blu Ray. I've seen it on all of its formats, and I can honestly say 110% that this is the best visually this film has ever looked. You are going to be very happy if you purchase this on 4K. Just don't go into it thinking you're going to get one of the best looking 4Ks you've ever seen, because that is probably impossible. And do you really want that? Because it's a film that I feel like a lot of people have a connection to, and if you mess around with the color timing or anything like that and try and just make it look like a modern film, I feel like more people are going to be disappointed with that. I think they found the perfect balance, and I think the visuals are really good. Now, the audio. What's weird is in the menu system for this, it just says original English or remastered English. Now, what that is a DTS HD 5.1 or its original 2.0. So I watched it in the new DTS remastered 5.1 track, and I thought it was great. Would I have loved Dolby Atmos? Absolutely, because I think it would have definitely been phenomenal for a movie like this, especially for the end fight scene. Everything else before that, as long as the dialogue is clear, I think we're all good. And, there are some audio issues just from the fact of when they were shooting it. I guess where they placed the mics on set, there's times when, we get some nice, little tracking shots where Rocky and Adrian start off in the distance. They kind of walk towards the camera, and then they kind of walk away from the camera. And when they do that, the audio, from a distance, it's not as clear, and then when they get closer, it becomes clearer and more crisp, and then as they walk away, you start to get that echo effect again. So that's really just a source material thing that has nothing to do with the actual audio track that is on here. I just think that the source material itself, again, they didn't have a lot of money. They did the best they could, so the audio isn't the greatest. And then when we get towards the last fight scene and the Rocky theme starts to kick in, it gets really, really loud, especially when he's training. I actually had to turn the volume down, so You know, I usually like, that's really like a big test for me, is if the dialogue and the audio kind of match up. But I get it, if you were in a movie theater and that score starts swirling, you're gonna be just really into it. But it got really loud that I had to turn it down a little bit because my neighbors probably would have gotten upset, and my wife, so I had to turn it down. That's one little minor complaint, is I guess the mix was just a little too loud on the scenes towards the end of the movie, but the audio came in pretty clear for the most part, other than those issues where I think they placed the mics just in, you know, it's the best they could do for 1976, so I'm not going to fault it for that. Now, as far as extras go, I haven't dived into the extras yet. They're all on that bonus disc. I'm going to watch that at the very end after I watch Rocky 4, so if you guys come back to the Rocky 4 review, I'll talk about all the bonus features in this collection then. But for now, we're just here to talk about the disc, and if you're just going to be buying Rocky on 4K, I think you're going to be very happy. Rocky is one of the most popular movies ever, and if you are a fan of Rocky, I don't think you're going to be leaving disappointed. I think you're going to be very happy with your purchase. There was definitely a lot of love and effort put into these transfers, and I think they did a good job, at least with the first Rocky. I can't comment on 2, 3, and 4 yet, but as far as the first Rocky goes, this is about in line what I was expecting. I didn't expect a perfect 4K. I didn't think it was possible, and I was proven right on that, but I still think that they did a great job with it. I think you're going to be very happy. So if I was going to rate Rocky 4K on its own, not in the Knockout collection, I'm going to still give this a really solid 8 out of 10. I'm definitely very happy with my purchase, and I think you will be too. So if you grab this Knockout collection, I know you won't be disappointed. If you grab that Steelbook, you're probably a little bit happier, because I can imagine that packaging is a little bit nicer. And anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this review. If you want to support this channel, nothing supports this channel more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to support us on podcasts, we do that now. Just search Let's Talk Entertainment and Media. You can always watch the video on here, but if you want to just listen to the audio, search for us on all podcast services. Give us a 5-star rating, because nothing helps them push it more than a nice 5-star rating, and even if you write a review. And then after you're done doing all that, I want you guys to grab your red boxing gloves, run to the top of the stairs in Philadelphia, raise your hands in the air and scream, "I love Let's Talk Physical Media."